Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Facilitator First Friday for Ready to Blend. I'm so glad you've joined me today, and I'm delighted to be with you and to have this opportunity to brush up on our skills around innovation and implementation and blended learning and student-centered learning. It's really a privilege that you would spend a portion of each month contributing to the network and being part of this community. So I thank you for tuning in and hope that this is a fruitful way for you to spend your Friday afternoon. Who gets anything done on Friday afternoon anyway, right? So might as well be doing this. I'm really glad to check in with you. Our topic for today is frequently asked questions, and we'll be diving in to what are some of the questions that we hear the most often around blended learning and innovation and student-centered learning. And then what are the answers that we like to give, answers that we've tried and we feel like usually resonate. For today's call, I want to encourage you to use the chat box. So sometimes we don't do a lot of chats during these videos, but today I really want to encourage you to open up that chat box and answer the question for yourself as you're hearing a facilitator describe their frequently asked question. And then when I send out notes from the call today, I'm also sending you notes from the chat box so that you have a long list, hopefully, of everyone else's thoughts for how best to answer the question. So if you haven't yet, open up that chat box and introduce yourself, and let's have a second conversation happening on chat at the same time as we're having our face-to-face on video. So that's the plan, and I'd like to start with Kathleen. Kathleen is the district PL coordinator at Cranston Public Schools in Rhode Island. And Kathleen was brave enough to be willing to go first with a frequently asked question, as well as one way that you answer that question. As Kathleen's describing her answer, I'd like to invite everyone to please fill in your thoughts about that question in our chat box. And Kathleen, as you're starting, will you just tell us for just a minute what you're up to and just a sentence or two about your role, and then go ahead and tell us about your question, when you've observed this question, where it arises, and some ways that you approach it.
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm the coordinator of professional learning, teacher evaluation, and mentor programs for my district. I'm a teacher leader, not an administrator, out on leave to do this work. So I'm, that's my full-time job. One of the initiatives that I'm involved with is supporting teachers as they make that move to blended and personalized learning. And so I work with teachers one-on-one, or with faculty groups, or with small groups of teachers. So it's across the board. I was a former kindergarten first grade teacher, special educator, but now I service K-12. And so one of the things that I'm spending a lot of time with right now is we have a charter high school that's part of our school district with the high school folks. And so my question is one that I've been given by my high school folks at this charter school, but also with my primary teachers. And because we're a fully included district, all our special ed kids are fully included in our classrooms, this issue is, has come upon us because of the behavioral at-risk kids that we have in our classrooms. So the question that I get a lot is, can I do station rotation without actually having students move? And obviously, when you've got some kids that are, behaviorally involved, or there are medical issues, or for whatever reason, moving kids around disrupts the process and the protocols of learning, and we have to think of other alternatives. So I'm really looking for the group here to give me some other suggestions, but I'll tell you two things that I have suggested. I've asked, we're also not a one-to-one district. So we have anywhere from 6 to 10 devices per classroom, and our class sizes range anywhere from 16 to 25. So one of the things that I had said to them is to set up their classrooms in where the seating is already in groups, and then make those groups, say, just color-coded, or the primary people are choosing characters for each group, but let's just stick with color coding. So you have your red, blue, green, yellow, whatever groups. And then you assign students as they walk in the door to go and sit in a particular group, so that you can, as the teacher, still control, kind of based on level or how you want kids to interact, the grouping itself. And then once they're there, they have an online playlist, but with a paper copy of it as well. So one group is working on an online playlist or an online task, and the other group is working on a writing assignment or reading an article or doing some kind of activity. And the other group is doing a collaborative problem-solving activity. And then rather than having the students move, the teacher then is moving group to group. So we still have a teacher-led center. We still have a collaborative center. We still have a tech center going on. And in most of the classrooms, there's 4 centers. There's an independent workstation as well, so 4 centers. But then the teacher is the one that's moving instead of the students, but they're still doing all of the protocols of a blended learning session. So that's working for us, but we really would like some other suggestions because it's an interesting topic, but with the number of special needs students, it's certainly a concern of ours. I'm seeing some stuff on the chat, which is great.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of good response, a lot of ideas. So thank you. And it looks like your question is resonating because I'm seeing a lot of people saying, Dana and Teresa and other people are saying, we have the same problem and this is what we're doing. So that's perfect. Let's keep that chat box moving. And with that, let's move to you, Dana, from Stevens Point Area Public Schools in Wisconsin. You're the Online Learning Center coordinator. Tell us a little bit about yourself and one of the questions that you're seeing a lot.
Sure. This is Dana, and I work as the online learning coordinator in Stevens Point, which is a position I've held now for about 8 years. And my role originally was to facilitate what we've called pure online learning courses. And my position has expanded over the years when I started training teachers to be teachers for our own students instead of resourcing out of our district. And I also work with orientating students. So I spent a lot of time with both areas as well as working with our administration and counselors. So as blended learning concept is coming up more and more over the years, the question that has come up in my district, especially from administrators and from some teachers, is won't blended learning, blended classrooms give teachers too much free time, and would we risk them misusing that time and not being engaged in the learning process? So where this question came from, in our building, before I really understood all the different models of blended learning, we were actually doing enriched virtual learning with one of our teachers who was seeing their students twice a week, or sometimes 3 times a week, and the other days the students would work on their own offline and or online. And anyhow, the administration was concerned that everyone would want to do this in the building so that they could have more hours open and be able to do their own thing and not have to work with students as much. So some of the explanations and responses I have given is that the teacher who has done this for several years now spends a lot of time on the computer responding to students and in giving feedback to students through the computer, and that's how he's using his time, as well as building up his course from year to year with better activities and so forth. And really emphasize that a teacher who has picked this particular model has earned it. It can't just be given as an option to any teacher in the building. It has to be a teacher who's willing to invest and demonstrate clearly to administration that it's a good fit. And when I came back from Heather's training this past November, I had a meeting with administration and really touched base heavily again with them, the different models. And it finally clicked with administration that this version of blended learning, the enriched virtual, is not very common, that it's the other versions that would probably be more conducive and easier to implement because it's not as disruptive, if you will. And they seem to get it now, and they understand that station rotation and flipped classroom will probably be the better fit for more of our teachers.
Thanks.
The question was, are we worried about it misusing teachers' time by giving them too much free time? And through constant conversations, periodic conversations, I hope I've finally reached more people that there's many options available.
Thank you, Dana. It feels like that enriched virtual model is one of the models that is the most specific to certain circumstances, and others, it's a really bad fit. Thank you. Janine Holmes, zooming into us from Alaska, from the Alaska Gateway School District. She was unsure if she was going to be able to. You made it. Good. Welcome.
Yeah, I don't know how good my audio will be, because you guys have kind of been in and out. But I typed up a little thing with some docs too, in case it doesn't come across clearly. The question was about how to grade with blended learning, and we came up with a system because I think before our grades weren't really reflecting progress students were making, and we kind of wanted to have it all be consistent. So We've adopted 2 digital adaptive programs that we use for math and reading this year. And we didn't know how to grade in a consistent way. So we set categories in our grade book with certain percentages. So we have a grade that goes in for grade level. And this is just one score in that subject, depending on whether the student is above grade level, on grade level, 1 grade level below, or 2+ grade levels below. And we kind of messed with those scores that we put in for that grade because we had a lower grade for 2+ grade levels below, but it was a really difficult adjustment for parents. I think in the past they weren't really seeing how their kid was doing, and now when they really see where they're at, it was a little bit of a difficult adjustment. We have another category for progress, and we want students who are on or above grade level to make a year's worth of progress in 1 year. And students below grade level to make a 1.5 year progress. So we set like weekly or every 3-week goals in for their progress in our adaptive tech programs, and then a rubric to help teachers put those grades in. I created a spreadsheet that would make it really easy for teachers to keep track of their students' goals in those programs and then grade them. And then we have assessments like tests and quizzes outside of those adaptive tech programs, and then an effort grade for things like participation, projects, homework, reading logs, all that, the kind of extra things that teachers like to keep in there and they like to grade, but they're not as really playing into the picture of how that student's doing.
Janine, that was such a comprehensive answer. Thank you. I like how you're thinking about grade performance, absolute grade performance, but then also progress. So just growth. That's a really comprehensive way of thinking about it. Thank you. Everyone else, please share your ideas. Grading. What was that?
Oh, well, what we want is for, like, let's say a kid moves to a bigger city. We don't want them having an A just because they work really hard. You know, we want it to really reflect where they're at. So it seems to be going well so far.
There's always much debate to be had around grading and what's fair for grading. Teresa, facilitator concierge and also a teacher by her own right. What's on your mind in terms of frequently asked questions?
Hi, everybody. So I'm joining you from Moscow, Idaho, which is just at the bottom of the panhandle in Idaho. And I was facilitating a workshop over the weekend in partnership with the University of Idaho and Idaho Digital Learning. And in this workshop about personalized learning, I had elementary teachers say, well, you know, how am I going to make this work for first graders, you know, kids who can't read, kids who can't type, or kids who are just learning those skills. So what I've started to do is give them strategies. So we can talk about the theory, but I've started to give them strategies or tools and just ask them, so now that you know what this tool can be used for, how can you overlay that into your classroom? And that's not earth-shattering, but you know, lots of times teachers don't have time to go out and find tools that are an exact fit. And so I think that we can bring our expertise into those settings. And mine happened to be on giving feedback and using the Loom extension. And once I demoed that for them, once I modeled that for them, they immediately sat down in a team and said, oh, okay, so they could do their sight words, they could record them. You're getting some interaction because the students' pictures show up in the lower left-hand corner. And they were able to arrive at their own solution, which is personalized learning in its own right. I have 2 resources that I'll share in the community. They just don't share well over my phone, but one of them is the book Eduprotocols, the field guide, and the other was just a PDF from Teach Thought that's 28 student-centered strategies, and I share those often with teachers.
Thanks, Teresa. You introduced me to Loom also, and it's by far the easiest way that I've ever seen to do a quick screen grab. If you just want to record a video feedback of yourself, it takes 3 seconds to add that extension to your browser, and it is a great tool. Jill Reese, one of our great network contributors of all times. What's going on with you? And tell us a little bit about your FAQ. She said she was hopping on later, so if she's not here yet, okay, I'm going to circle back to her. Jill Gertner, let's go to you, another great, famous network contributor. Principal at Middleton Cross Plains in Wisconsin. What's your FAQ today?
Hi, yeah, I am often, because my roles in the school district are both kind of leading the blended initiative from an instructional perspective as we transition from having a fully online school to having a much more focused on a blended and serving kids connected to our district. And then my other role is at our charter high school that's place-based personalized learning. So I'm often talking to leaders and trying to help them support teachers in the classroom in the implementation of blended learning. So one of the questions I get is that how do we make sure that this is things that the way the teachers implement it will ultimately result in good outcomes for students. I think leaders in particular are very focused on how much stuff is out there and how much noise is out there about this product or this product or this product, and how there's a danger for teachers sometimes just grabbing the newest trend and not really thoughtfully implementing it. So to use some of Heather's language, I really use the focus on the why, starting with the why, and really trying to help teachers and leaders talk about why are we doing this in the first place. And if our goal is to help students become more independent and to be develop their skills, then we have to make sure that the way we implement the technologies and the instructional techniques come back to that all of the time. And I think that helps people focus on, if I'm going to use this strategy, I'm going to use this tool, how does this help students become more independent learners? And then the jobs to be done theory to me fits perfectly in that, because all teachers, once they think about that question, have something that they're interested in. There's something that they would like to improve in their classroom. There's some reason that they'd like to connect it. And so then it creates this starting place of, okay, I want to solve this problem in my classroom, or I want to meet this challenge that I have. And ultimately, I'm trying to get students to be more independent. So if we keep kind of that chain, and then getting them involved as learners, whether that's our leadership team. Dana's question made me really think about the fact that we've had our leadership team be in classrooms as blended learners themselves. Then they can make those connections. It's the same thing for teachers, having them connected as learners themselves, having them have the blended experiences so they can see, oh, this is how I was empowered by this experience. This is how the protocols and the procedures set me up to be empowered. And that really helps connect all those dots for people.
Jill, thank you. Spoken with someone with a lot of experience. So everyone listen to what she's saying. Eddie Cohen wrote in. He's the K-12 science supervisor from Princeton Public Schools, right in the shadow of Princeton University. And he said one question he hears a lot is, what do you do when parents say, hey, the teacher isn't teaching. My kids are having to teach themselves. So Eddie, I don't think you're on the call right now. You wanted me to just read your question? Jump in if I'm wrong. How would you answer that question? Do you hear the same thing? People saying, the teacher isn't teaching, kids are having to teach themselves. What's up with that? How do you tell parents? Do you tell them that's okay? Do you actually say, no, actually our teachers are teaching? What do you say? Janine, you've heard that question before. What do you say?
I have a answer to that.
Yeah, go for it.
So we had an experience exactly like that when we started a blended learning in one of our elementary schools, and we had a couple of parents that were very emphatic that they didn't really want their children to be in blended learning classrooms. They wanted teachers to be teaching them. And we just said, give us 4 weeks. Just give us and your child 4 weeks. And they agreed to do that. And by the end of the 4 weeks, that group of parents is currently our biggest cheerleaders. They came in very much a skeptic, but they saw the increase of student engagement and the way that kids could go home and talk about what they were learning and why, and that they were able to make decisions about how they learned and what they were learning about. and the parents were sold. So my best advice is try and, you know, give as much information about the process as you can to parents, but then just ask for 4 weeks and the kids will sell it for you.
Kathleen, thank you. That's really insightful. It sounds like Teresa had a similar answer of diplomatically remind the parents that we're trying to help our learners be active learners and give it some time. Janine, James, you said you've heard the same question, so please type in the chat box what answers you give when you hear that question. Let's go now to Drea from Pewaukee School District. She's a learning coach. Share your question with us, Drea.
Hi, everyone. I was part of the blended learning cohort last February, so we were lucky to kick off a blended learning cohort ourselves in August. We have teachers K-12. I work primarily with the elementary teachers, but even as we started our cohort after the training got done, people were super excited, and then they said, where do we start? So that was by far the number one question, and I think we all decided in our group of 25, those teachers, we're all pretty much overachievers and we want to go big or go home. So we just have to remind ourselves that starting small is okay. And so for a lot of our teachers, especially elementary teachers, in order to get the kids ready, that was a big part of it, is teaching the routine, making sure that the kids felt confident in their independence, making sure the teacher felt confident in their independence, and then moving forward with small examples of blended learning. And just a reminder that it didn't need to be a lesson or a unit. It could just be a lesson. It could just be a daily activity to try it. And, you know, on the flip side, we do have some teachers that really dove in and have done a whole unit that's taking place over the course of 6 weeks. And those are our first graders. They're pretty amazing. So.
Drea, I love that for those elementary students, and maybe for all students, really starting with routines is a good way to inspire confidence in the students and in the teachers that everyone can handle this. What a great insight. Carol Neff, one of my favorites, Davis School District, the personalized learning supervisor. Share with us. Let's see, Carol, there you are. I can't hear you still, Carol. You're not muted.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Sort of. Talk really loud. I don't think you're talking through your speaker. I think you're talking through your computer speaker. So just talk into your computer.
Okay, so let me. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yeah, perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I can't hear you. So, all right, I'll just keep talking and then I'll stop. So my question was that what is that silver bullet, that magic bullet of a software program or something that can help us keep track of the progress that kids are making, to keep track of all of our data so that we can manage all of this? That's always the big thing. How do we manage this? How do we do this? And part of it, our new superintendent has not mandated that there's certain things that are coming down from central office to the schools. Here's what you use. What we've really tried to do is have some schools try out some things and let's see what are those things that are working for each of those schools. And then let's talk to each other about what's working for you, what's working for you. And honestly, there is not a magic bullet. There's not that one program out there that does it all and keeps track of everything. And so the teachers that are making it work have just had to jump in and go for it and try it and figure out what are those things that they're doing that does make it work, that they can keep track and move kids along and make it work. And those teachers that have figured it out are doing really well. And those teachers that are still struggling with it are mostly, it's those teachers who haven't decided to jump in, that haven't gotten started on it. And so I always tell them, okay, what do you have? What are you using? And how does that work for you? And now think of it in this way and then just start and then we'll figure it out as we go. And so that seems to be what helps them to just keep going. If I can just encourage them and coach them along and just get started, and we'll get some routines and some procedures and things figured out so that you can work on how you keep track and how you mark progress for kids.
Carol, that's a great question. And I would love to invite everyone on this call to type in the chat box, what tools you found or platforms that you think are the strongest in terms of tracking student progress and delivering content adaptively, and why? So take a moment to add that in. I was just reviewing Freckle Education that does differentiated learning for ELA and math, and I was impressed by how it helps teachers differentiate. But I agree, it's very hard to find a tool that works for everyone. So type your thoughts. Even if there's not a magic bullet, what is a tool that you think helps us get partway there? I'd love to hear what you have to say. So another write-in question from Rebecca Miller from Ripon School District. She was also in my November facilitator cohort. So with Dana and Paul and some of the others of you on this call today. And she asked, how can parents help to support blended learning models at home? Does anyone have an answer to that one? What's the role of the parent when a student's a blended learning student? This question is going to come back to one of my issues, which is that blended learning is such a big category. And I think a lot of the answer comes down to what type of blended learning they're doing. So if they're doing like a fully online course, that's going to be different from if they're doing a station rotation and it's fully contained in the classroom. Does anyone else have an answer to that? Another thought I have is that a lot of it comes down to the role that you see for parents and for teachers. So remember Eddie's question of, hey, what do you say when the parents complain that the teacher isn't teaching? If you're trying to set up an environment that's higher agency, where we're really working to empower learners and not have the teachers give the answers, it makes sense to also help the parents learn to how to respond more Socratically. So when a child has a question at home, the parents learn how to help the student solve their problem and find the answer they need, as opposed to just spoon feeding it to them at home, because that breeds that same dependency mentality at home that the teacher's working hard at school to try to overcome. So helping parents learn how to have a role that's really empowering the learner is an important part of improving the parent role, as I've observed it. All right, that wraps up our frequently asked questions. Thanks to all of you who joined us. I will send out a link to this video as well as to the chat, and look forward to joining you again for Facilitator First Friday next month. I hope all of you have a very happy holidays. I hope you feel supported in this work. Please always feel that you can reach out to Teresa and me if there's work that we can do to smooth your work and to help you have the resources that you need. We're also very open to suggestions. So if you have a topic or a special event you'd like us to plan, please let us know. And again, just hope you have a wonderful end of the year and Happy New Year, and we'll see you in January. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.